welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE, and my next guest, with over 15 years of experience, is an alchemist, a shaman, a master healer, and a spiritual mentor. Welcome to the show, Michelle Hawk. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's mine. I love having these conversations, especially when it comes to holistic healing and stuff like that. These are some of my favorite episodes. So, how are you today?
I'm great. And it's interesting, like we're recording November 12th. I'm not sure when people are going to see this, but
Oh, it's fine. They're going to see it starting today.
Oh, great. Okay, amazing. Okay, so everyone's on the same timing page.
Yes.
So we're in an interesting crucible right now in the US, and there's a lot of emotion going on. There's a lot of energy moving around, and
Yes.
and I feel really activated in my warriorship, my conviction, my how I'm here to serve. And so I'm feeling really lit up about that right now, and that's what I'm bringing to our talk today.
Awesome. So how did your journey into shamanism begin at such a young age, and what drew you to it?
Yeah, so that was 2003 that I pretty much literally stumbled into my first shamanic workshop. I was always a magical kiddo, as I think really all kiddos are. And, a lot of people go through this process of, through school, hey, sit still, be quiet, don't touch that, animals don't talk, trees don't talk, what are you talking about? I think that gets trained out of a lot of people. And I thankfully I have a very supportive family of origin who always encouraged me and supported me. And I found this shamanic journey workshop when I was 15 years old, again in 2003. Now you can just Google shaman near me. So it's certainly a lot easier now, for better or for worse. But I came across this class and I attended the class. I was the only young person there, everybody else was a grown up. And it gave me this vocabulary for everything that I already felt to be true about the world, that everything is alive, everything is connected through this universal life force, and that it is possible, not only possible, but it is a good thing for us to drop into that connection, to collaborate with aliveness, to celebrate and connect with all of our Gaian relations. So it felt like coming home to me. It just made so much sense. So I continued my shamanic studies through high school and university. It was a really interesting time being in the science department at my university, earning my degree in biology while also studying shamanism and energy healing and mediumship. That was a fun reckoning in my inner selves. And now, being in practice for more than 20 years, I work with shamanism and alchemy primarily, and I train practitioners, and I also support people who are going through big life initiations and transformations and want support from shamanism and alchemy in that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you explain what alchemy means to you and how it plays a role in healing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I see the word alchemy thrown a lot, particularly within the neo spiritual and personal development communities. And people tend to use it as a synonym for transformation. And that's kind of true, but not quite right. It also usually is thrown around as a buzzword of meaning something that's vaguely mysterious and expensive. I don't know if you've seen that before, but um, it is kind of those things, but not really. And in pop culture, we tend to recognize alchemy as the process of transforming lead into gold. And while that is not technically inaccurate, it is a woefully inadequate understanding of what alchemy actually is, which is the transmutation of any base material into its most actualized elevated form. And I say any base material. So this includes our own consciousness, our emotional health and well being, our nervous systems, our homes, our relationships, our lives, our societal structures and systems, and moving them through this process of alchemy that is a very logical, very sensical process of how transformation actually works to bring these base materials into their most elevated actualized sense, essentially the gold of their essence and of their being.
Okay. Awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about shamanism and alchemy?
Okay, well, shamanism, there are certainly a lot of misconceptions about that. Again, particularly living in North America, we have a population of indigenous people here from many different tribes, and
Mhm.
people assume that the word shaman is only referring to indigenous people of North America in their spiritual tradition, and that's not true. So, shamanism is an umbrella term used to describe the earth based spiritual practice and the spiritist practices of indigenous people all over the world. There are
Yes.
also shamanic practices that come from Mongolia, Siberia, the Celtic shamanism, Norse
Mhm.
shamanism, from the indigenous peoples of Australia and certainly all over Africa. There are many different, very rich shamanic traditions. And I am initiated into primarily my lineage that I hold comes from what is now Hungary. And I've also studied in Celtic shamanism, and then I have studied and practiced with both North American and South American indigenous teachers as well. So, shamanism, again, I use that term and I get flack for it from people who think it means only Native American people. It doesn't. Um, and so there's that misconception, but again, primarily it's earth-based spiritual practice of connecting with the spirit realm. And really, since it is ubiquitous to indigenous people all over the earth, we are all citizens of earth, and I think doing it in a right way is really vital to our spiritual experience and also to our embodied experience of coming home to ourselves, coming home to earth, and being in right relation, being in good relation with the land we live on and with the non-human beings of this earth. I think it's vitally important. So that's shamanism. Big misconceptions right there. And again, I view it as very valuable and very helpful and fundamentally necessary for our healing and well-being collectively as a species and as a planet. Alchemy, again, misconceptions about it is that it's only the lead to gold thing. It's so much more than that. Also, misconception that you can just plug it in as a synonym for transformation. It's so much more than that. It's a whole mystery school tradition. It's very ancient wisdom, spiritual technology that guides us through the process of transformation, which I see honestly as the single most valuable tool I have in my toolkit for supporting people who are going through really hard stuff because or on the precipice of going through really hard stuff, because we've all been in, I'm sure Wise you can relate, we've all been in situations where, gosh, I know this thing in my life isn't right and I'm so
Mhm.
afraid to do something different. I feel scared. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm afraid of losing my home, my partner, my job, whatever that might be. I don't know what's on the other side of that. And so then we don't even step into making those changes. And then we end up stuck in a situation that we're tolerating or that isn't really that great because we just don't know how transformation works and we don't know what to do. So, alchemy is the roadmap for that, that gives us the tools to be able to say, you know what, I know how transformation works. It might be scary, but I know I'm going to be okay because I have this map that tells me what's going on energetically. So I don't feel lost. I don't feel alone. And it gives us tools and practices to do to engage with transformation in a really empowered and confident way instead of feeling like we're dragged behind the car that somebody else is driving.
Okay. All right. So how do you help people awaken and sort of master their intuitive gifts?
Mm. People, when they find me, they have usually already gone through some aspect of spiritual awakening. So maybe they have had a healing crisis, or they, like me, were a magical kiddo where it never really got turned off, or they've had some sort of awakening experience. And by the time they have found me, they have also usually started some aspect of study. Maybe they've taken some meditation courses. They have done some training in body work, or they might also be a therapist. I have people find me who are in either Western medical practice, physicians, assistants, therapists, social workers, some aspect of caregiving, care providing. And they find me because they are seeing that a lot of spiritual training and education and mentorship out there, it's basically just formulaic stuff, and not that that's necessarily bad, but anything formulaic can only get you so far. So you can, anybody can go take a like 6 weeks meditation course and okay, at the end of the 6-week meditation course, you might have some valuable tools, but that isn't actually going to be helpful to your personal journey of healing and awakening and transformation. So people usually find me after they've been through some of the basics and they're looking around saying, okay, I took all the courses, now what? And then I help people with really deeply understanding their specific gifts. And since I have over 20 years of training and practice, I have a ton of modalities in my toolkit. I'm able to support people in a very individualized, unique approach to their specific healing journey to help them develop the spiritual skills and refine their spiritual gifts to anchor into their unique expression of medicine in the world, whether it's for themselves in their own healing journey or whether they're translating that into some kind of external service, either as healing work or as some kind of caregiving capacity.
Okay. Well, what was one of the most transformative experiences you've had in your journey as a healer?
One of the most transformative experiences I've had in my journey as a healer, I've had a lot, which is why I'm here specializing in transformation. I think because I've been through it enough times that I started to recognize the patterns of, oh wow, this is what this means. Oh wow, this is alchemy. I think the some of the most transformational stuff that really rocked my world in a very meaningful way was at the beginning of my journey when I was a teenager and I was in university, and then going through these really profound initiations where I was training I was in the science department. I was earning my degree in biology. I was doing my undergrad research in hummingbird foraging behavior, writing academic papers, and also studying shamanism and energy medicine. And for me, it was a really interesting time of being in a situation where I felt really disconnected from a lot of my peers because I wasn't around anybody I could talk to. And again, this is very different now. Now, if spiritual community, you can go join a Facebook group. You can, listen to this podcast, for example. It's a lot easier to find our people now,
Mhm.
or go to Burning Man, whatever the case may be. But back at the time, I felt really alone. And that was both a blessing and a challenge because the obvious challenge was I didn't have anyone to talk to really, aside from the people that I met in my healing courses, but also I was a very young person. A lot of the people were older than me. It was just, I didn't find my people. But the blessing of that was that I really got to be very, very present with these initiations and got to not take anything for granted about what was true or not. As I was deepening into my spiritual practice and also in the science department, I fell in love with both. And for me, science and spirituality are two different systems of investigating the same universal truths, the same cosmic truths, and they belong together. And that's one of the reasons I love alchemy so much, is because it is both a science and a spiritual practice. And having been immersed in both worlds for so long, I see the dogma in both. I see the dogma in both spiritual practice and in science, and I see their limitations, and I also see the gifts that they have to offer. So for me, transformational experiences are just being forced to be present with myself and be alone with myself, and really deeply anchoring into my convictions, my beliefs, and my spiritual practice, and how I see that translating into the world through my service as a practical mystic, as a practical energetic person and wisdom teacher. I want nothing more than the spiritual practices that I hold for myself and for other people to be immediately applicable in my life and in the world. Because if we cannot translate our spiritual practice off our meditation cushion, like if those principles don't apply in your life, they're not worth your time.
Mm, okay.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, hold on. How does being a naturally gifted psychic and intuitive influence your work?
I think everybody is intuitive. And again, generally, people go through a lot of conditioning that trains us out of our empathy and our intuition.
Yeah.
and and to our detriment, really. And I think that I happen to be very practiced at it because I leaned in. So I should say it. Yes, I'm naturally gifted, but so is everybody. I'm just have done it over and over again. Um, you know, And I think that it has really supported me in my work because there's so much in working with healing energy and working with spiritual forces where we need to have a really finely tuned intuition. And as a healer, part of what we're doing is we are working with the seen realms and the unseen realms. And being able to attune and work with and invite in these powerful spiritual forces is essential in working with shamanic practice, energy healing practice, alchemy. All of them are mediumship based practices. That is one of the underlying principles of all of these mystery schools, is they are necessarily plugged into the spiritual frequencies. And so then when we have a lot of trauma, when we have a lot of stuff on top of conditioning and layers and dysregulation, nervous system dysregulation, other people's ideas, who we think we're supposed to be, quotes, um, that ends up creating a lot of gunk in our field that makes it very hard to sort through and access our underlying intuition. So as we cultivate our intuition, it's not a matter of the messages aren't there or the spiritual beings aren't there. They are there. They're always there. But can we hear them? How skilled are we at listening, understanding, actually receiving those messages, and then interpreting them in a way that makes sense? And that's really what intuition is. It's just getting better at listening, getting better at receiving the information that is already available to us about our own health, our well being, our spiritual nudges from our guides. And then for those of us who are working in support of other people, receiving intuition on their behalf and being sure that it's a really clear message. Being an intuitive and accessing our own psychic power necessitates that we are very clear channels, because if we're not a clear channel, then we cannot trust that the information that we're receiving and then interpreting is actually coming through a clear filter. So
Is that, I'm sorry, is that why children are kind of more, they're much more clear channel than us, because of the fact that they haven't been tainted and they haven't been programmed and they haven't had all these misconceptions put
yeah,
on them?
I think generally, yes. Children are very intuitive, very sensitive, and that's largely the reason why they come in clear. We come in clear, and then it's usually gunk piled on top that gets in the way. And so then there's this process of de-gunkifying of how we actually come into our intuition. It's not that it's not there, it's just that you need to clear the channel so that you can access it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So what practices or rituals do you recommend for someone new to the healing arts?
New to the healing arts, generally. So I have a system that I take most of my clients through, even the ones who are not new, who have been around for a while. And I find that when I lead my clients through these practices, I call it like the foundations of energetic mastery. Even the experienced ones say, wow, I've never done that in that way before, or here's this new layer that I never really thought about that made a huge difference for me. So the foundations of energetic mastery, and I take most of my clients through this is something I've developed over the years of helping people anchor into awareness and consciousness practices to be able to sense, feel, project, and direct energy. So this is like going to the gym for your energy body. Say, for example, as a professional athlete, let's say like, I don't know, a tennis player, right? They still need to do all the foundation conditioning, strength, and flexibility. And any athlete, like a gymnast, also doing conditioning, underlying foundation of strength and flexibility. But then once they have this underlying foundation, then they do other exercises that are specific to their sport to enable them to be really like capable and dexterous according to their sport. But that underlying foundation of strength and conditioning and flexibility is going to be the same. So in our energy body, we do these conditioning practices to train our acuity to then apply according to our quote sport of how we're using our energy and attention. So the consciousness practices really help us again cultivate that conditioning that then we can use according to whatever practices we're doing. So that's the beginning, and then working with clearing energy, how to, again, the degunkifying, right? Whether it's our own energy, old stuff, hidden, trapped emotion, tension, stagnation, but then also other people's energy, societal conditioning, entity attachments, whatever the case may be. So clearing and releasing that, grounding and anchoring into ourselves, our bodies, present time awareness into earth, resourcing ourselves, nourishing and cultivation to increase our capacity, hold more energy, and then creating a protective field. And so that's your 30-second rundown on the, the foundations of energetic mastery. But obviously, I take a long time bringing my clients through that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm. How can someone begin to discover and kind of learn how to start mastering their abilities?
That's a good question. Usually, honestly, people already have little glimmers of an idea of what that actually might be.
Hmm.
And I think that when people come to me, often people come to me wanting to know what the end is already. And this is a universal temptation. I've been there myself over and over repeatedly. And I have found that um, there's this interesting balance between the area where people tend to have a lot of resistance ends up being a really juicy area for them to lean into and ends up being part of the medicine that they often end up offering because it's the hardest won knowledge. And it's like we get to become an expert in the thing that we most need. And I think about my own relationship to transformation. We've briefly touched upon alchemy a couple times in this
Hmm.
conversation already. I can really distinctly see in my life, like pre-alchemy, post-alchemy, like how I was relating to healing and transformation because it made such a profound difference for me in my life. And I look at some of my own medicine, my own resistance was really around change and how I engaged with change and felt, afraid and resistant and pushed it away and tried to control it and grip it very tightly. And so that was some of the biggest medicine that I needed to learn. And now going through the process of alchemy and going to my study and practice of alchemy, now I have that tool in my toolkit and it is hard won wisdom, yo. It is like it is in there. So I look at as people are looking at mastering their gifts and wanting to anchor into their gifts, it's very much a process of understanding the initiations that you have been through already and working through the initiations yet to come and coming into really like a conscious, I'll say a conscious working relationship with your medicine. That is a big growth area that I see for a lot of people where people have these innate abilities or innate understandings, but they don't necessarily have it anchored into their conscious awareness. It's not in their mastery yet. So I bring people through both through my one-on-one mentorship and then also through alchemy. I have a 200-hour alchemy certification course that I've developed and teach. And it's a year-long apprenticeship, deep dive into the mysteries. And it's all about working with these principles of transformation and applying them in ourselves, our lives, and in the world. And so I bring people through these really deep initiations that are all about consciously anchoring into their own mastery and developing fluency and dexterity with their innate raw connection. And I think that that's a lot of it there because again, it's like you're already magical. Like you here listening, you're already a magic person. You're already connected. You're already you have this in you, but it might be just raw right now. You need to sand it out a little bit. You need to refine. You need to develop skills. You need to, just like a baby learns how to walk, like it just takes time and strengthening and support. And you're going to fall down a few times. We always do. But having somebody in your corner to help guide you, give you practices to learn to, again, increase your strength, increase your capacity, help you ask the right questions. That's a really good one too, because sometimes people get really frustrated when they feel stuck, they feel lost, they don't know what to do, where to go. And then you have somebody in your corner who's been there already. Like I've been here over 20 years doing this. So I ask the right questions of like, hey, have you tried this? Let's look at this way. Here we go. Here's a practice for that. And then developing their skill.
But many people aren't comfortable with change. That's
Mhm.
kind of why they stay stuck in the same place, is because they're afraid. They're
Yeah.
afraid of the change that might happen.
Yeah.
Um, can okay. Okay, wait. All right, well, what is the significance of mentorship in your work, and how do you approach guiding others?
Hmm. I am so grateful to have had the mentors in my life and in my practice that I have had. And I see my shaman mentor that have been working with for a very long time, who initiated me into the shamanic lineage that I hold. I met her in 2009, and she has been a very consistent force in my life. So I see, having had the mentors that I've had, it has made all the difference in the world. And just before you asked me about mentorship, you said people feel fear and resistance to transformation. And I would say, a lot of people through spiritual initiation, it's it can be very intimidating. It can be very scary. And whether or not you ever plan on offering this as a practice, whether you're like, oh, I want to go practice energy healing in the world, or whatever the case may be, um, it can be very, very intimidating, because we're working with these very powerful unseen forces, and we're working with our own deep dark stuff. We're working with our trauma, we're working with our healing. We might be working with past life influences. We might be working with unwelcome or unpleasant spiritual forces, entity attachments, psychic attacks, all sorts of things. And I say that not to scare anybody. I say that not as any, like, and no fear mongering here, just a very realistic view of, there are forces that are much more pleasant to work with, and there are forces that are very unpleasant to work with. They both exist in the world. And the way, and yet, here we are, we humans exist in the world where, we know that there are plants that are safe to eat and plants that are not safe to eat. And there's a certain degree of common sense when you're out in the forest. Same as, there are places that are generally a little more comfortable and safe to go, and places that are less safe to go. Like, if you're going to climb a mountain, like, you should probably know what you're doing. And so there's a degree of common sense in that, and a degree of having guidance. So, like, if you're going to go foraging in the forest, take somebody with you who knows what the mushrooms are. If you're going to go climb a mountain, do the necessary training and the conditioning to make sure that you're going to be safe, and take a guide with you. And the same is true in our own spiritual realm, of having a guide with you, having a spiritual sherpa to help you carry your bags, and show you which path to take, and help you ask the right questions of yourself, and give you the practices, is going to make your life a lot easier. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it without a guide. It just might take you a lot longer, and you might eat some kind of poisonous mushrooms on the way, and maybe puke your guts out, so to speak, right? But here, with these unseen realms, there are dangers there. It's not that it's not all only light and love. It is also, just as there is light, there's also shadow. So it's just a good idea to have some common sense, to stay safe, know what you're doing, know what you're working with, and what you're inviting in, and then tools and techniques to help you avoid those things, and then tools and techniques of what to do if you do end up encountering an unwelcome entity attachment, for example. Having a mentor in your corner makes all the difference.
Yeah, and I think in any field that you're in, you should definitely have a mentor and have someone you can talk to, and because they've been through where you want to, they've been through the experiences you're gonna face eventually.
Hmm.
So it's always good to really have someone you can really um speak to, and have them help you through your journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You talked about integrating various healing modalities into your into your holistic experience for your clients. How how do you formulate what you're going to use for certain clients?
Mm. I generally, so my list of modalities that I'm trained in and initiated into is super long. It's like
I
pages
can
long.
imagine.
So, I am a multi lineage practitioner, and I think, as we're living in an increasingly globalized world in terms of multi lineage humans coming with their ancestors coming from multiple places and speaking multiple languages and having connections with community all over the world. It is becoming more and more common for spiritual practitioners to also hold multiple lineages and modalities of practice. And and that, there's a consideration of how to do that well when we're working with wisdom traditions, and not to be um, like, what's the word I want to say? Not to be distorting or diluting the potency of wisdom traditions, but to be appreciating and understanding and making sure that they're working harmoniously with each other. So when I work with my clients, I'm drawing upon a whole holistic suite of tools. My primary lineages that I do hold and the primary modalities I work with are shamanism. As I mentioned, I've been doing and practicing that for over 20 years in a lot of study, very deep study, and alchemy, which I've been working with since 2015 or 2016. And of course, within that, there's also energy healing and mediumship. But really, it's those are the main tools that I'm anchoring into. And alchemy, as I've kind of been talking around it a lot so far here. So as you're tuning in, if you're not quite so familiar with alchemy, if you want to learn more about alchemy, I'll just tell you now. You can probably, this will be in the show notes too. You can go download a free guide to the 7 stages of alchemy from my website, and that'll give you a little bit more of that roadmap to the process of transformation, like I was talking about. And it helps you. It outlines the 7 stages of alchemy. It tells people where you probably are, where you might be stuck. So if you are listening and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me, I am been so afraid to make this big life jump, or I really want to but I'm not sure how, or I started to make the leap and now I'm stuck and things are going sideways, like, go download that guide, come on. And it gives tools and practices as well for helping to move to the next stage and move through this process. So then when somebody is coming to me and they're in a healing journey, I'm pulling from these different mystery schools. So I'll identify, okay, where are you in the cycle of alchemy? What part of the transformational cycle are you in right now? Everybody is somewhere on that map. And then according to that, offering particular tools and practices and exercises to support them in moving through that process. Also opening up the toolkit of energy healing. So, okay, do you have stuff that needs to be cleared out of your field? Are there energetic misalignments that need to be addressed? Working with all the levels of healing. So, working in the body realm, working in the heart mind realm, working in the spiritual realm, past life realm, soul retrieval. It's there. It's really different for everybody, but usually it's anchored into, okay, well, let's work with the alchemy stuff. Again, I teach a year-long course for that, so I also support people who want to study and learn that. Um, but working with alchemical principle as well as shamanic sensibility and energy healing.
Okay. Have you ever encountered where you've been somewhere and someone's energy is just like kind of screaming at you, like you just walk in somewhere and you're like, okay, I have to say something to this person. Has that ever happened to you?
Ooh, I usually don't say things to people uninvited. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, so but yes, I have been in the situation of being somewhere and people's energy are screaming at me. Much less so now. I actually learned how to turn down the volume on that because I decided in my own self, I was like, you know what, I don't really want to be screamed at so much. So now, but earlier in my journey, yeah, it was really hard to go grocery shopping. I would be out in the world and have, people getting reads on all the people around me, and it was very overwhelming. So out of like personal necessity, I learned how to regulate that more effectively. And now I am I'm much less shouted at now. I experience it much more as a background awareness that I can turn up the volume on if I want to, but
Yeah.
most of the time I leave it down. I also have my agreement with my spirit team is that if they want me to help somebody, they need to bring that person in through the door of my business. That's the agreement that I have. So I ask spirit team and I have made this this declaration several times of, if you want me to help someone, please show them my podcast, show them one of these interviews, get them on my newsletter, somehow guide them to me in a professional capacity so that I can devote my time to them in the best possible way and offer them a consultation, take them into my mentorship, take them into my alchemy course, so that I can do that in a way that is in alignment with my own values, my own time, my energy, my boundaries, and feels really good to me. So I can give them the best effort that I have to offer, the best attention, the best advice. And it's in a way that's very respectful of my time and my energy, and not just taking up all my personal time and energy, like helping people at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, sometimes, people do show up through other means, so of course my friends, my loved ones, my family definitely get a little bit of that attention from me when they need it. And then of course, I often end up in that position with people at the dog park too. There's something about the dog park where you end up just like cracking open, and then people are crying in the field, and it's like, okay, we get to go into healer mode here too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had this question and it just kind of lost it. But
Yeah. Okay.
I did. Hold on. And it wasn't something. It wasn't a regular question. It was just something. Oh man, I lost it though. It probably come back though.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now I know what I was going to ask you.
Mhm.
You mentioned your podcast.
Yeah.
Um, what made you want to start your podcast? Being that I love doing my podcast, it interests me to know what got you started on your podcasting journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, my podcast is called Shaman Sister Sessions. So if you are interested in more conversations about mysticism, spirituality, energy healing, all things related to that, y'all can go hop over there and check it out. I began that with my co-host, my best friend and co-host, Catherine Bird, in 2016, right
Wow.
before, right before what I'm calling now disaster election 1.0. And so here we are 8 years later, and I mean, y'all, regardless of your political beliefs, I am
Yeah.
a liberal believing in human rights and environmental protection. I'll just be very clear about that right now. We don't have to get more political than that. But at the time, it was, you know, she and I, my best friend and I, we have awesome conversations all the time where we're asking really great questions about, like, hey, here's this thing that I'm noticing in my practice. What are you noticing? And she's also a shamanic practitioner and a very skilled healer as well. So we were having these awesome conversations. We were collaborating on offering events and some healing work, and doing really cool stuff together. And it was actually her idea. She said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast? I think that'd be fun." I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." And so it was mostly just saying yes to more great conversations with my best friend, which is the best possible thing.
Yeah.
But it evolved also of like, I really love getting to have conversations like this. I really love getting to be the resource of information that I wish I had had at various times in my life. And I
Yeah.
know that there are a lot of people out there who are asking questions like we're talking about right now of, gosh, I feel overwhelmed by psychic information. What do I do with that? Or I
Well,
feel like I want to make these transformations in my life. Where do I start? And
somebody out there actually has a question. Tony,
oh,
who's
great.
a loyal listener and follower. He's shout out to Tony. What's going on, Tony? He wants to know, Michelle, if I may, do you pick up on others' energies as if you do know what it is yours and what it is the collective?
Yes. So that is a really great question. And remember back to the foundations of energetic mastery that I mentioned previously. One of the earliest, what's the word I want to say? One of the most important early skills that I help my clients cultivate is being able to tell the difference between what is your energy and what is not your energy. And that people pretty universally have that question of, well, how do I know? How do I tell? And again, like we talked about the gunk on top of all of our layers of intuition, that is one of the the first and most important things that we learn how to sort through, of just being able to tell the difference of like, oh, I'm feeling this yucky feeling. Does that belong to me, or did I pick that up from someone else? Is that from my mom who's going through a tough time, or from somebody at the grocery store, or is that collective trauma and pain that I'm feeling? And the how we tell, that was part of the question, right? Like, do you pick that up, and how do we
Yeah.
tell, was that the question? Okay. How we tell the difference? Well, there's not really a short answer, but we learn how to tell the difference by attuning, by strengthening our acuity of our energy body and our sensing and feeling. I talked about sensing, feeling, projecting, directing energy as kind of these fundamental skills. So that would be a learning to sense and feel your own energy body, your own frequency, and then from there cultivating that discernment to be able to tell the difference. Now, again, I know that's kind of a half answer, not answer, and but I would say the answer would be, imagine if you have a farmer who has sheep, and like some stranger walks on the farm, they're not going to be able to tell the sheep apart. They'll look kind of the same, but the farmer can tell the difference. The farmer knows because the farmer's been staring at the sheep for however many years, right? And so the same is true of our own energy body. When you practice and you develop, again, these skills that I do teach people how to do, you develop that acuity and that subtle perception to be able to discern the difference of, okay, this is consistent with my own energy body. I can tell that this does belong to me. It's uncomfortable, but it does belong to me. And so I'm going to sit with it like that. Or no, this doesn't belong to me. I picked this up from somebody else. So I'm going to clear it out of my body and my energy field and release it. And then if I feel that that's appropriate and welcome, then I can offer some healing to that aspect of the collective or to that person's energy and offer a prayer for their well-being. But it really comes down to practice and subtle perception, and cultivating your acuity in that realm.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, great
Um,
question. Thank you. Do we have more questions?
no, that's it. That's the only question he had. But that's
Okay.
that's one of the reasons I kind of uh shifted. Plus the fact that I was tired of editing my shows, I shifted
Mhm.
more to live shows because you never know, someone out there might be listening and they and have a very interesting question like Tony did. So
Yeah,
that's why I enjoy doing the live aspect of the show, because now the audience becomes part of the show.
I love it. It's great.
Oh,
You asked.
he asked about grounding.
Oh, great. Okay. I was going to say, you asked about my podcast, and in the early days, we always used to record live, and that would
Yeah.
be the thing that we did. And then we got out of that schedule, I think, just because it became hard to do it consistently at that time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do miss that. I like the questions piece. Okay, Tony, what you got?
He wants to know about grounding.
Okay. What about it?
Tony. She wants to know what is it, Tony? So if you could kind
Like,
of
what is
yeah.
grounding? How does it work? Why is it important? I can.
Well, let's do it that way. What is
Okay.
grounding?
Awesome. Yeah. What is grounding? Why is it important, and how does it work? So grounding is a very common term that people throw around in the healing space. Everybody knows what it feels like to feel ungrounded. So we usually start a definition there. If we're ungrounded, we feel disconnected from our body. You might be going through like a dissociation response. You might have your attention really scattered, disconnection from earth, disconnection from present moment and connection. So grounding then is, I define grounding as we're really anchored and present in three different things. Our body, our own body, you're actually inhabiting your bioform, present and connected with the earth, rooted into our planet Gaian mother. And then the third piece that happens by virtue of the first two is anchored in the here and now, because the present is where we have power. The present is where we are able to work with energy, work with our consciousness, but it has to come from the connection of the first two. So some methods of grounding I saw you ask about there. We become ungrounded when we're staring at our screens all the time. We're having a lot of external influences. If we spend all our time inside, not going outdoors, paying attention to everything outside of us, right? So we can look at, okay, well, the causes indicate the cure, so to speak. So the methods for getting grounding, there are many, many methods for getting grounded. But my simplest answer is go outside and touch the earth, feel the ground, feel your body, whether I mean, here in the northern hemisphere, it's getting cold, right? So might not be the best time to be outside barefoot, but like go put your hands on the trees, or even if you're living in a city, like there is a patch of dirt somewhere you can go touch. I'm certain of it, or go find a
Oh
plant
yeah.
growing going through the sidewalk, right?
No, I kind of feel it because I'm a city boy. I was born and raised in New York City, but now I
Mhm,
live in the Pocono Mountains. I live in the mountains, and just the other day, I had a doctor's appointment, and I kind of was down and everything. But
mhm,
on the drive home, just driving and looking at the leaves change and the transformation that was around me going around.
mhm.
Um, it was a great it was like I spoke to my wife and I said I just had a great drive. Like I had an amazing drive because it was I just stood there and drove and enjoyed the scenery and
Yeah,
enjoyed all the transformation and everything that was going on around me, and I was just present in that moment. And
yeah,
that to me was so magical and special. And I told her, I was like, yeah. She's like, you okay? I said, yeah, I just had I just had this great experience. It was like one of those drives where I just was just enjoying me. I was just enjoying the time and just enjoying the moment.
yeah. That's a
So
perfect example. I mean, it sounds like you felt really present and connected in that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was just a wonderful experience. Like I said, I had just came from the doctors and I was kind of down, and
Mm,
then I just started driving and like I said, I live in the mountains and just now it's times the trees leaves are falling. There's red and orange and all these wonderful colors
nice.
like I said, it was a great experience. It was something I really enjoyed.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you brought that up because nature, I mean, grounding, being in connection with nature is one of the simplest and easiest and fastest ways that we can actually just come home to ourselves, come home to being present. And we live in a world where we're spending a lot of time on screens, we're spending a lot of time with external influences. And, um, I had this very cool experience yesterday. Actually, I was in, and I mean, I sent out an article to my list about it today because it was such a cool and very auspicious experience. It was a very powerful spiritual message. But I was sitting at my computer at my desk, and my desk faces a window. I live in the mountains in the forest. Um, in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Portland. And I, because I live in the forest, there's deer around pretty consistently, but they're
Yes.
usually on the periphery of the forest. And I have a dog, so they don't come too close to the house. And they're usually, it's like dawn and dusk. But I was sitting there writing an email about invoking warrior guides and invoking our warrior consciousness to be warriors of love and forces of peace and well-being and health and protection for all beings. And right as I start to write out, I'm typing out an invocation for people to call in their warrior guides and warrior consciousness. A big stag walked right in front of my office window with his big rack of antlers and everything. And I was just like almost jaw dropping a little bit and like craning my neck to watch him. And he just strolled right in front of the window, and he was like munching on some bushes and just kind of meandered off. And it it was so lovely. It was very, very powerful. And I had that experience of just like boom, dropping right into myself, right into my body, and like right now I just feel that I feel so happy. I feel really peaceful and
Mhm.
present just from remembering that.
Yeah.
And it was again, like I see deer here around pretty regularly, but not right next to the house, not in the middle of the afternoon. He was right there as a at a very auspicious time given the message that I was writing and what I was
Yeah.
talking about. So I wrote a long email about that today and why that was really important. But similar, it's really, it connects us so immediately with our own primal nature, with our bodies, with the earth. So again, the simplest tool, there are many tools that I have for grounding and methods for grounding, but the simplest one is go outside and touch the earth.
Well, he mentions that he spends a lot of time fishing and he puts his feet in the grass every chance he gets.
Great.
But it's just getting colder now.
Right. Yeah.
And he wants to he wants to thank you so much for sharing your time and gifts, Michelle. Much love and abundance and resources to you, as well as to me. Thank you, Tony. Same to you. Much respect to you, brother. I greatly appreciate you sharing and asking questions. Um,
Thank you, and you're welcome. Happy you're here and that this resonated with you. Yeah,
but this has been a wonderful show. I've had a great time. Time flies when you're having such great conversation. But now
indeed.
it's come to the time where you get the solo screen and you get to plug away, let people know where they can find you, website, everything.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really, really happy to share this with you. I hope you found this helpful. As I mentioned, I offer various tools of healing and mentorship work. So, if you are a practitioner who wants to expand into your spiritual skill development and support your practice, or if you're not a practitioner, but you're a magic person, spiritual seeker, and you want some help, whether it's through your own healing, your transformation, or going through a big period of change in your life and you would like my help with that, then you can find me through my website, michellehawk.com. That's Michelle with two L's and hawk like the bird.com. Like I said, you can go download that free guide to the 7 stages of alchemy from my website. That'll walk you through the roadmap to transformation and give you some tools and practices to help you get unstuck from where you might be stuck or resistant or afraid of entering into that process of transformation, and my best recommendations for how to help you in that cycle. If you're interested in that 200-hour alchemy certification training course, you can also find that on my website. I am now taking applications for the 2025 cohort. So the next year of students are already rolling in. So if that calls to you, then please reach out to me. And again, if this resonates with you, send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed this and find something valuable for your journey where you're at right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. This has been, like I said, it's been a great show.
Mhm.
But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show and we chat a little bit before off screen. But thank you so much for being such a great guest. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've had a great time.
Thank you, Wise. I so appreciate you inviting me to be here. I'm really happy that we had a chance to chat and hope this is helpful to your people.
Oh yes, yes. I love these. Like I said, I love these conversations, especially in this realm, because
Yeah.
so many people are skeptical about it, and me personally, I'm a believer. I truly am, because I've had experiences in life that have opened my eyes to this. So to me, this is important to have these conversations and to show people like, hey, this isn't hogwash. This is true. This is some real stuff that you need to start listening to, and being able to present it and have it out there and give a platform to like to yourself and everything is
Yeah.
very important.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing your work and giving this a voice and making this accessible to people who need it.
Thank you for being such a great guest. I will definitely love to have you back on. I love having people back on that I have great conversations with. So the door is always open.
Oh,
You're always
thank you so
welcome.
much.
You're always
There's
welcome.
so much more we can talk about, Wise. We got this. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
But again, let me just close out the show, and we'll talk a little bit off there.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. Another great show is in the books. Shout out to Tony for stopping by and making this a really great show. I love it when the audience interacts and asks questions and shares. It's very important that we really get these messages out there, and I'm very grateful for everybody who tunes in. If you catch the live, wonderful. If you catch the replay, that's even better. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. As always, shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J, love you guys. Shout out to the boss lady, love you and appreciate all you do for me. Um, Big shout out to everybody who tunes in, Tony, Corrado, all my regulars that tune in. Greatly appreciate you guys. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.